Look, usually I am standing here preaching about bore axis, optic cuts, and getting the most value for your hard-earned cash. We typically talk tools for self-defense, but let's be real, sometimes you just want to go to the range and turn money into noise. Today is not about concealment or practical application, it is about pure recoil therapy. We are ranking the top 5 ammo hogs, guns that exist solely to put a smile on your face. Let's get into it. Number 5. The Chiappa Rhino 60DS. Kicking off our list is the Space Cowboy Special, coming in with a street price hovering right around $1,200 depending on the finish you choose. Now, I know what you are thinking. Is this just a gimmick from an Italian design house, or does it actually perform? I hate overpriced hype as much as anyone, but the Rhino earns its spot because it completely flips the script on revolver physics. Literally. By firing from the bottom chamber of the cylinder rather than the top, it lowers the bore axis drastically. In 2026, we talk about low bore axis on modern polymer striker-fired guns all day to control split times. But Chiappa applied that geometry to the revolver years ago. This aligns the recoil impulse directly into the meat of your hand and forearm, rather than snapping your wrist upward. When you get this thing on the range, that engineering pays off immediately. Shooting full house 357 Magnum loads usually punishes you after a few cylinders. With the 60DS, that muzzle flip is virtually non-existent. It is a straight pushback. The sights are fiber optic and easy to pick up, and the single-action trigger is surprisingly crisp with a very clean break. I will admit, the double-action pull is a bit complex and heavy due to the internal linkage, but if you are treating this as a precision range toy, you will be running single-action anyway. Compare this to the gold standard of wheel guns, like a Smith & Wesson 686. The Smith is a beautiful, traditional tool, but under rapid fire, you are fighting physics. The Rhino feels more like shooting a heavy, metal-framed competition pistol, closer to the flatness of a CZ Shadow 2 than a dirty, hairy hand cannon. It makes 357 feel like 38 special. So, what is the verdict? Is this for carry? Absolutely not. It is wide, the holster options are terrible, and the complex internals make me hesitate for life-saving duty use. But as a range toy, it is absolute magic. It puts a smile on your face every time you pull the trigger without the wrist pain. If you want something that turns heads and flat-out shoots, the Rhino is it. Coming in at number 4, we have the Kel-Tec CP33. You can usually find these hovering around a street price of $550. Now, why is a mostly plastic Kel-Tec on a list of high-tier range toys? 2 words: quad stack. This thing holds 33 rounds of 22 LR flush in the magazine. If you add the extension, you are running 50 rounds before a reload. That is absolutely insane volume. The range feel is surprisingly competent. I know we usually associate Kel-Tec with interesting concepts but sometimes questionable execution, but the CP33 is different. It features a rigid, full-length top rail for your optic, a non-reciprocating charging handle, and a trigger that breaks cleanly around 4 pounds with a very tactile reset. Because the bore axis is low and the bolt is light, the dot simply does not move. You can run split times on this gun that would make a grandmaster jealous. However, we have to look at the benchmark. If you want a .22 caliber target pistol, the gold standard is the Ruger Mark IV. The Ruger feels like a premium firearm. It is steel, it is heavy, and it runs forever. The CP33 feels like a space toy. It is mostly polymer, and you have to pay attention when loading the mags to avoid rim lock or it will jam. But here's the verdict. The Ruger is for serious training. The CP33 is for smiling. It is suppressor ready right out of the box and turns money into noise faster than anything else in its class. Do not carry this for defense. But for ringing steel plates all afternoon without reloading, it is unbeatable. Coming in at number 3, we have the gun that dragged the 1800s kicking and screaming into modern relevance, the Henry Big Boy X model. If you can actually find one in stock, expect a street price hovering right around $1,000. Why is a lever gun on this list? Because Henry finally stopped listening to the collectors and started listening to the shooters. This is not your grandfather's deer rifle. It features a side-loading gate, durable synthetic furniture with M-lock slots for your lights, and most importantly, a factory-threaded barrel. This setup allows you to run a modern suppressor and a red dot sight without needing an expensive trip to a gunsmith. On the range, this thing is an absolute cheat code for fun. If you pick up the 357 Magnum version and run 38 Special through it, the recoil impulse is practically non-existent. It feels softer than a 1022. The action is classic Henry, smooth as glass right out of the box, and the trigger breaks cleanly without that gritty creep you find on cheaper imports. Compare this to a traditional Winchester or a standard Woodstock Marlin. Those are beautiful, but they are stuck in the past. To get a suppressor or a weapon light on those, you have to ruin a classic. The X model is purpose-built to be a quiet, tactical platform. The verdict? This is a total money pit, not because the gun is overpriced, but because you will burn through 500 rounds in an afternoon. Running subsonic ammo through a suppressed lever gun is an experience every shooter needs to have. It is reliable, it is modular, and it is easily one of the most enjoyable firearms on the market today. Coming in at number 2, we have the heavy hitter for your wallet, the Heckler & Koch SP5. Let's rip the band-aid off immediately. The street price on this is hovering around $3,000, and that is before you add a brace, a claw mount for an optic, or pay the tax stamp to SBR right. Is it overpriced? Absolutely. Does it matter once you actually pull the trigger? Not even a little bit. This gun makes the list because it represents the gold standard of subgun shooting experiences. We are not talking about a modern, modular chassis here. The ergonomics are stuck in the 1960s. The safety selector is a reach for average hands, and reloading efficiently requires specific training. But the magic is entirely in that roller-delayed blowback system. In a current market flooded with cheap, direct blowback PCCs that thump your shoulder harder than a 5.56 rifle, the SP5 is a revelation. On the range, this platform is effectively a cheat code. The recoil impulse is incredibly soft. It does not snap. It pushes gently. You can hammer out split times that make you look like a grandmaster without even trying. The bolt carrier group moves with a mechanical fluidity, a ka-chunk sensation that you just do not get in modern polymer wonders. And yes, performing the iconic HK slap to send the bolt home is worth at least $500 of the price tag alone. Let's compare this to the common benchmark in the PCC space, the CZ Scorpion. The Scorpion is a third of the price, sure, but it has a violent, sharp recoil impulse and a stock trigger that feels like dragging a piano across a gravel road. The SP5 is smoother, flatter, and suppresses better than anything else in its class, including the gas-operated SIG MPX. The verdict? This is terrible value for money if you just want a home defense tool. But if you want the absolute pinnacle of shooting enjoyment, this is the king. It is an ammo hog simply because you will never want to put it down. This is strictly for the enthusiast who demands the genuine article and hates money. Coming in at number 1, we have the undisputed heavyweight champion of useless fun, the Magnum Research Desert Eagle Mark 19. If you want one of these in 50 Action Express, prepare your wallet. You are looking at a street price hovering around $1,800 to $2,000, and that is before you buy the ammo, which currently costs about as much as a steak dinner per trigger pull. Why does this matter in 2026? Because in a world of boringly efficient polymer striker-fired pistols, this is glorious excess. It is a 4-pound chunk of steel that operates more like a rifle than a handgun. It uses a gas piston system with a rotating bolt. This is not about concealed carry or home defense, unless you hate your eardrums and your drywall. This is purely about the visceral experience of sending a half-inch piece of lead downrange. Let's talk about the range feel. Ergonomically, holding a Desert Eagle is like shaking hands with a brick. The grip circumference is massive, the bore axis is sky high, and the slide-mounted safety is impossible to reach without shifting your grip. But the trigger? It is actually a shockingly decent single-action brake. It is heavy, sure, but distinct. And the recoil impulse is unique. Because of that gas system and the sheer mass of the gun, it does not snap your wrist like a large-caliber revolver. It is a massive, slow shove. Now, let's look at the benchmark. If we compare this to a shootability standard like the CZ Shadow 2 or a Staccato P, the difference is philosophy. A Staccato is a scalpel. It is designed to make you shoot faster, flatter, and cleaner. The Desert Eagle is a sledgehammer. You are not measuring split times here. You are measuring the size of the fireball. A Shadow 2 makes you feel like a competitive shooter. The Desert Eagle makes you feel like an action movie star. The verdict? This is strictly a range toy. Do not buy this for protection. Do not buy this for competition. Buy this because you hate money and you love physics. It is ridiculous, overpriced, and completely impractical, and that is exactly why it is the #1 most fun gun you can own. Look, let's be real. You aren't concealing a Desert Eagle, and the SP5 costs more than some used cars. But life is too short for boring, soulless polymer strikers. Sometimes you just need to burn powder and smile. If you hate money as much as I do, smash that like button and subscribe for more no-nonsense reviews. Drop a comment below. What is your ultimate guilty pleasure gun? Train hard, stay safe, and I will see you on the range.